Hi, this is Don McAllister, and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. This screencast will look at the new release of iTunes 5.0, and I'll be pointing out some of the new features and also looking at how you can use smart playlists to manage syncing your podcasts with an iPod more effectively. First off, let's have a quick look at the new features in iTunes. Okay, well the first thing that you notice is the new GUI, the new interface, and that's raised quite a few eyebrows within the Mac community. I must admit I quite like it myself, it looks nice and clean. But some of the more substantial updates, in fact I've actually heard some people complaining about this, is that you now find that all your podcasts are actually included in the main library. And you can see here I've got a mixture of podcasts and music all jumbled up together on the main page, which some people have found a little bit distracting. Now Apple have actually given you some control over this, and if you actually go to Edit and Show Search Bar, we now get this new search bar, and we can actually view subsets of your main library by just clicking on these buttons. So at the moment the default is to see all your media. If we click on music, we just look at the MP3s, and if we click on audiobooks, which I haven't got, we have a blank page. To look at your podcasts, there are all your podcasts separately, and you notice as well that there are new icons. If it's a booklet or a PDF, you have this small book symbol. If it's a movie, you have a movie symbol. And we can look at the movies individually, click on videos, and we can look at the booklets that we have as well. Now, videos and booklets have been supported since 4.9, but this is a slightly neater implementation. Also, as well on the search bar, you can actually search for the individual subcategories. So, for instance, if I want to look at music, and I want to search by a composer, I just type in the search button now. So it looks for Phil Collins. And there we go, Phil Collins, a member of Genesis. And if we pull one of the tracks up with a Command I, there we see we've got Phil Collins in the composer field. You'll notice as well that as you actually click through the different subcategories, the search parameters change, so you can actually have a specific search depending on the type of media that you're searching for, which is very neat. Okay, let's have a look in preferences where there are some changes as well. If we start with general, nothing much change there. iPod and podcasts we'll actually leave till the second part of the screencast. There are some things I want to show you with that. Playback, oh yeah, there's a new entry within the playback to do with shuffle. I think this is mainly to do with iPod shuffles, in that there have been complaints that the actual random filling of shuffles hasn't been that random. So there's some control now over just how random you want your shuffle to populate. Within sharing, no, that's the same. Store is the same. In advanced, they've actually moved the importing function into the advanced tab. So it's now under advanced and a separate tab within the advanced option. But everything else is the same on there. And also there's a new parental guidance section, so you can disable podcasts, music store, and shared music. And also you can restrict kids actually getting onto the explicit content within the music store itself. Okay, so they're the main changes to the GUI. What I'd like to show you now is some smart things you can do with folders. And as you can see here, I've actually set some new folders up within the source area. And these are actual nestable folders, which you can hide your playlists away in. You can have, with iTunes, you can actually have many different playlists, and it's always been a problem in they have 30 or 40 playlists that it's quite difficult to manage them. They can scroll off the bottom of the screen. But now you can actually create a new folder and call it whatever you want. Let's say pop, and then you can go back into your library and go to pop. Let's see, Joss Stone. Let's create a new playlist for Joss Stone, and then just drag it into the pop folder. I've also got, oh dear, got Genesis down as pop, which I don't think is quite right. It's just the one track, but let's copy that across as well. And that's, you'll see here that these are nested subfolders, so misunderstanding actually isn't in the pop folder, but if we just drag and drop it into the pop folder, it lines up underneath and we can see that it's now in the pop folder. And the nice thing is you can actually now just click on the individual playlists within the pop folder and see the different entries. But if you click on the top level folder, you can see here that that track from Genesis is actually mixed in with Joss Stone. So that's quite a powerful mechanism whereby you can now start to order your playlists into different categories using folders. Okay, what I'd like to do now is just have a quick look at podcasts. Now, to be honest, although 4.9 was groundbreaking in its support of podcasts, I don't think the actual method of syncing podcasts to the iPod was really thought through. It was very difficult to manage, and to be honest, the same problems have come across in 5.0 as well. But at least now in 5.0 there is a way around it. Because the podcasts are now actually in the main library, we can actually use smart playlists to manage them rather than the built-in management of podcasts as provided by iTunes 5.0. So I'm going to demonstrate this to you now. I'm going to try something new, so please bear with me. I hope it all works out. But I'm actually going to try and get a screen capture, or rather a video capture of an iPod, and just demonstrate a couple of things to you. Okay, so to try this, I've actually got a video camera hooked up. I'm actually going to try and record a QuickTime movie while I'm recording a QuickTime movie, which should be good fun. But let's see how we get on. Okay, so this is my iPod Mini. Unfortunately, it's not an iPod Nano, but it'll soon be Christmas. And as it comes for standard, the podcasts are actually within a separate category within the music folder. Within podcast, then you have a separate folder for each podcast, and then within each podcast you have the number of shows that you've actually got synced to your iPod. This is the PodCheck review with the fantastic Scott Fletcher. But the problem here is that although Scott has labelled his shows with the date, and iTunes itself puts the date on as well, it's quite difficult to know whether or not you've actually listened to, or where you're up to if there is a series. What was the last one that you listened to, which is the next one that you need to listen to. It wouldn't be much better if once you'd actually listened to something, it actually disappeared automatically off the iPod when you sync. Now there is a sync option within iTunes that you can actually only sync unplayed shows, but unfortunately as soon as you start listening to a show, it's then become played, and then it deletes it from the iPod before you've even finished listening to it, which seems a bit crazy. So we need to look at a different way of doing it. In fact, there's a couple of other things I'd like as well. Let's just go back. So I want to be able to have new shows delivered to the iPod automatically. I want to be able to, as soon as I've finished listening to them completely, I want them to be deleted when I next sync. I'd also like to have them, another problem as well is if you go into, say, into one that, I don't know, let's see, yeah, I've just got one in there. Now, if I actually started to listen to this iLounge podcast, as soon as it finished, the iPod would actually stop playing. It would just go back to the original entry, and you'd then have to dig the iPod out your pocket and find the next podcast, etc. So really what I want to do is have a list of new podcasts that will just play sequentially, so that when one finishes, it'll just go on to the next podcast. Also, I'd like the ability to actually have a list of podcasts that were in size order. So if I'm going on a short trip or a short commute, I can actually sort my podcasts into sizes and just choose a small podcast and just listen to a short podcast while I'm on a small journey. So that's what I'd like. As it stands with the standard sync within iTunes 5.0, you can't do that. So there are some special things we can do. So let's get rid of this movie. Right, what we need to do is to make use of an attribute of each show called the play count. Every time you play something, it increments automatically. So the first time you play it, it actually increments to 1, and if you play it again, it'll increment to 2, etc. Now, until you've played it right the way through, the increment count actually stays at 0. So it's a good way of actually tracking those podcasts that you've actually listened to right through to the end. So what I'm going to do is go back to the library. We're looking at all, so that's okay. I'm going to create a new smart playlist. So file, new smart playlist. And a smart playlist basically is a playlist that is dynamic. You give it rules or criteria, and it actually builds the playlist on the fly. So it's a dynamic playlist. And what we want really is genre first. Is going to be a podcast. And then we want another attribute, and we want the play count is 0. Live updating, we won't have any limits. It's got to match all the following rules, and we say OK. And we just label it, and we'll call this, because I'm going to sort of put this on the iPod just to make things easier, so I can keep track of everything. I'll call it iPod New Podcasts. Okay, and you actually see here, these are all the new podcasts with a play count of 0. Now, the next thing to do is to actually sort them into the date that they were added. So that way, those at the top are the newest, and those at the bottom are the oldest. So as any new podcasts come in, they'll automatically go to the top of this list. So there's our first smart playlist. Let's do another one. For file, new smart playlist. And again, we want podcasts, so its genre is podcast. And in effect, this is exactly the same as the first one. I'm just going to sort it differently. And play count is 0. We say OK, and we'll call that iPod small to large. What I'm going to do here is look at the size. So I'm going to switch the size column on. I'm actually going to sort the size. So there we go. The smallest is 128K and the largest is 43 megabytes. And you'll see here as well, we've actually got PDF files or booklets, and we've got movies in this playlist. Don't worry about that, because iTunes itself will actually disregard any media that it can't play on the iPod. So until we get the video iPod through, these will just disappear, so don't worry about that. Okay, and what I'll do as soon as we've got the new folders, I'll create a new folder, again just to tidy things up. In fact, no, let me delete that. Sorry, I've already one I did before. Let's just delete that. I've actually got an iPod playlists folder because I've already created a music playlist for a band. So I'll just drag those into the iPod playlists. Okay. One more while we're doing smart playlists. For maintenance, what I tend to do is to create another smart playlist. And again, we're going to look at podcasts. Whoops, sorry. Oh, podcast is true. Well, I can use that one, but let's stick to genre for now. And this time we'll have it play count is greater than 0. Right, and there is one that we've actually played right the way through. This is actually one of the screencasts that I was testing out before, so I've actually played that right the way through. Okay, so what we'll actually do is we'll create a new folder, and we'll call this, let's call it iPod maintenance. I'll show you what we actually do with this later, so let's just let's rename that. We'll call this played podcasts. We'll drop that in there. Okay, we can close these up so we've got a nice neat panel. Okay, so we need to go into preferences to change some settings to make this all work. So, right, we had a look at general before. If we go to iPod, now you need to automatically update selected playlists only. So these are the playlists that are actually going to be synced with the iPod. And they're the two new ones that we created before, iPod New Podcasts and iPod Small to Large. And there's one more, which is the music that I'd selected before. Okay, these other options, I don't use these, but you can just only update check songs. Enable disk use is when you're actually going to use your iPod to sync to the address book, or now it supports syncing to Outlook as well for the Windows platform. But really just select those playlists that you need to sync to the iPod. In the podcasts entry, automatically update all podcasts need to be selected, and update all episodes. And there is an entry here which is the unplayed episodes. Ignore that. This is the thing whereby if you select that, as soon as you listen to the first 30 seconds of a program on the iPod, it will be deleted next time you sync it, so you don't want that. So you want all episodes, and that's about it. So let's well, by making those changes, it's automatically starting to update the iPod now, and that's complete. In fact, all we're doing really is the podcasts were already on the iPod. We've just created some new playlists on the iPod, which is the new podcasts and the small to large, and there's our music playlist as well. So if we go over to the iPod now and have a look. Okay, so now we should have our new playlists. So if we go to music, playlists. And there they are, iPod New Podcasts and iPod Small to Large. So let's look at that one. So there we have it. It's the same playlist as you see on the iTunes. The most recent podcast is at the top. And as we play each show, it will move on to the next show. Right, so one nice thing you can do with this as well is if there's a show that you find you have listened to before, or it's something that you want to skip past and have it removed from your iPod when you next sync, you just go into it. Get the fast forward button up. All I'm doing is just scrolling through right to the end. Okay, when we get to the end, there we go. And it moves on to the next show and starts playing the next show. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll stop that. We'll go back to iTunes. Now if I do a quick update. Okay, and the update's finished. You'll see now in the new podcasts playlist there are just 2 Podcheck Weekly Reviews rather than the 3 that we had before. Okay, and if we go back to the mini. And let's go back to our playlist. And there we go. There's just two entries there. Okay, so that's nice and straightforward. I'll show you the other playlist as well, which is the small to large playlist. Whoops. There we go. And there's our other list sorted in size order. And just one final thing to mention, one of maintenance. If you remember, we did the 3rd playlist before, which was the iPod maintenance playlist. It's just an easy way of actually pruning out any podcasts that you've seen. If you just open the iPod maintenance folder, look at played podcasts, and you'll see there's one that was in there before, and this one that we've just listened to on the iPod that has been removed from the iPod automatically as we synced. If you want to double check, you can always look at the the play count is already displayed, so there we go, play count 1. Because this is a playlist, you can delete this. You don't have to delete it, but you can delete it from a playlist if you do Alt and backspace, and then remove. It removes it from the library, and then move to trash if you actually want to remove it from your actually move the media file itself. So that way, as you listen to new podcasts, you can always go to played podcasts, and they will delete them manually from here, and you can keep an eye on your disk space. Okay, well, I hope you found that useful. I must admit, it's a godsend now that iTunes 5.0 is here with the inclusion of podcasts in the main library. Please drop me a note or any words of encouragement to screencastonline@gmail.com, or nip across and visit the website at www.screencastsonline.com, where you'll find lots of new screencasts being published over the next week or so. I've just put up part 1 of how to make your own podcast. Parts 2 and 3 on how to host a podcast and how to actually distribute and promote a podcast will be available within the next week or so. So I look forward to seeing you over there. Catch you next time on macTV.